Thank you, everybody, for being here. I see quite a few attendees, so thank you. We're about to get started. We appreciate your patience. Just giving a moment for everybody to log in and join us so they don't miss out on everything. And Jimena is also multitasking because we're recording this one, but she's recording on a different device in Spanish as well, so we can have both available. So we're also waiting for that. I think she's trying to get that one started. So maybe, Matthew, we can start with you.
Sure. So, and I know Jimena.
Yes, I'm sorry. That Spanish one was taking a little bit to get it all started. Okay. But I just wanted to quickly introduce our superintendent, Matthew Harris. Yes, a few words, but also I wanted to let everyone know, maybe listen tonight's student forum in Spanish, that we do have the interpretation globe at the bottom to select Spanish or English. Para nuestra comunidad latina que nos está acompañando la noche de hoy, si gusta escuchar todo el evento en español, tenemos nuestra interpretante Mariana, que va a estar haciendo la interpretación en español. Tenemos el globito en la parte de abajo que pueden ver y escoger el idioma de su preferencia. Muchas gracias. Thank you, Matthew, and I'll hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Jimena. Welcome to everybody and thank you for joining us. Looks like at this point we have 25 attendees and growing. Just a little bit after 6 o'clock, so we want to get started. Bienvenidos a todos esta noche. Yo iba a explicar cómo escuchar en español, pero Jimena ya lo explicó. Entonces, bienvenidas. So this evening, I'm very excited to hear from our BIPOC students, Black, Indigenous, people of color. I think if I look at our as a district, the Board of Education and I spent a lot of time this summer going over and really kind of stating out some goals. And so we came up with 4 goals and a lot of objectives under each of those goals. Now it's on our website under our district, about us. And the first one, all student scholars will experience an excellent, diverse, equitable, and inclusive education. And as part of that, things such as producing an equity study, common assessments, and also these systems for hiring new staff, building teacher pipeline. So we have a lot of goals under these. One of them is also, so goal 2, all student scholars will have a rich academic options that meet their unique needs. Studying why students leave our district, and ensuring that all students have access to A through G courses, these sort of things. Goal 3, all student scholars and families will be engaged in their learning community, that we'll have district-wide experiences to allow all students to explore their interests, expanding participation for a diverse and representative group of stakeholders, building community to ensure that every student in our district can identify a trusted adult at school. And then goal 4, enhancing the long-term sustainability of our organization. Under our core values, we believe as an organization that all students have value, infinite potential, and the right to an excellent education. All students learn in a safe and caring environment where they're motivated to do their best work. All students reach high levels of academic achievement through rigorous and culturally relevant curriculum. Diversity is an asset that strengthens and enriches our learning community. Parents and caregivers are recognized and engaged as partners. The community supports the educational program and is engaged as a partner and resource in student learning. The district employees are dedicated to student success and operate as a high-performing collaborative team. Shared decision-making is valued, and active participation from all stakeholders is critical to student success. This evening, I'm excited that we have this group of students here, our end users as an organization. Really, the the students are the most important thing. The reason that we're all here as a school district. It's why I got into education. It's why teachers and staff are here. And this gives us an opportunity to think about, I shared those core values because that is our aspiration. That is what we believe. And we know, in the words of Jim Collins, going from good to great, we want to improve our practice. We want to be the best district that we can be. And that it all starts by listening to students, listening about their experiences here in Petaluma City Schools, learn how we can grow as a district. How can we do better? We can't get better unless we really listen and hear from students about their experience. My experience as an elementary school principal, I had students at a young age. We've got some students here who are now have kind of gone through at least a couple schools or a few schools in our district. We want to hear about their experience and how we can improve everyone's experience here in Petaluma City Schools. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jimena. Jimena is going to introduce our wonderful students, and then we can get started with our questions.
Hello. And I also want to introduce Gina. She's my colleague. She and I are working really closely together. She's our family and student engagement coordinator, and I am your wellness coordinator for the district. And I'm not going to be talking too much. I'm going to hand it over to our students. It is their show. It is their time to be highlighted. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and start with Emilio introducing himself, and then they'll go ahead and each introduce themselves with their name, grade level, what high school they're attending currently, and how they identify themselves. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Emilio Carver. I'm a junior at Petaluma High School. My racial identities or my ethnic or racial identities are Mexican, Native, Danish, and English American.
And then Indy, and then we'll go on the same order we coordinated earlier.
All right. My name is Indrius, and I am a senior at Casa Grande High School. I identify as African. Yeah.
My name is Megan. I'm a senior at Petaluma High, and I identify as white and Filipina.
Hi everyone, my name is Gabby Gottschall. I go to Casa Grande High School and I'm a sophomore. I identify as half white and half Filipino.
Hello, good evening. My name is Estrella Gonzalez Poblano. I am a junior in Casa Grande and I like to be identified as a Latina.
And Amelia's going to start us off by reading the first question, and they will continue moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah, so the first question is, tell us about you and your school experiences so far, and what brings you to this BIPOC forum today. So as I introduce myself, I'm Emilio Carver, and I'm here to represent the Mexican and Native communities principally. So I'm not even quite sure where to start, but I've faced a lot of racism. I would say mostly in the school district. I grew up in Sebastopol at Oak Grove Union School District. But so I transferred here in 6th grade, and that's when I would say I really started becoming aware of racism around me. But I'm sure that it's happened for most of my life, all of my life, right? So it's mostly come from peers. Yeah, and I just wanted to share my experiences and represent myself.
I believe
And
Indy
All right. Guess mine again is Andreas and Casa Grande High School. And to speak on my experience as a senior at Casa, or my experience in Petaluma City Schools, specifically Casa, I've been there all 4 years. My senior year, of course, I'm graduating this year. Racism is pretty rampant in our community, but it's to be expected considering that we are a sizable minority. I don't really have much to say on it because change is not, in my opinion, isn't going to really happen anytime soon. So it's just about creating the safest space that I guess that we can have for people of color in our community. Yeah, so I guess that's it.
So I'm Megan, and I kind of started, or I went on this panel because I'm also part of a couple other groups where diversify our narrative. We're trying to kind of implement more diverse literature. So I was just hoping to, provide some more perspective.
Hi, as I said, my name is Gabby, and so far my PCS school experience has been good, and I've never really faced direct racism, but I know that Asian students like myself and others have sometimes seen microaggressions or people who might assume certain things about being Asian or how Asians act or talk. And I'm here to represent the Asian American community and the students at our school. I'm also the president of the Asian American Club at Casa Grande. And last year over Zoom, we didn't have a lot of people. We actually only had 4 people attending the meetings, but now that we're back in person, we have about 20 people, and it's really nice to see everyone from the community trying to come together in the club and be able to talk to one another and share their experiences. So I'm here today at this forum to just represent the Asian American community at our school.
Hello, everyone. Like I said earlier, my name is Estrella Gonzalez, and today I have decided to participate in this BIPOC forum to represent the Latinx community. I am the president of MECHA in Casa Grande. I'm very proud of myself for that, and I take great pride in saying I am, because I believe that the Latino community should be represented and they should be heard, and that is why I'm here today talking.
And then Indy will start us with the second question. I'll go ahead and read it. He might not have it close by. So our second question for our student panel is: share a time you felt singled out because of your race or ethnicity. Please explain and share how you felt. We'll go on the same.
Should Indy or I go first?
Go ahead, Amelia. We'll follow the same pattern. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so this question was a little bit overwhelming because there's been just too many times. So I decided to go with how all those times made me feel. And all I can say is that I just made me feel humiliated. There's not another way to put it. And I describe this as you want to do something about it, but you just feel powerless, and you can really never get used to it. But for me, it just happened so much that I stopped saying anything because I just didn't want to deal with it. So yeah.
So I don't really like this question because I don't feel like the school has a right to ask that question in a sense. And let me explain myself, is because like something like that is incredibly personal, and like I have a hard time discussing a question like that with my own family. Nevertheless, excuse me, Mr. Counselor Harris. So like, but I can speak to like to my school, because I was informed like an hour before this that you can't even mention names or point out people that were involved in it, which kind of takes out the which adds anonymity, I guess, but it kind of like it just points out to the fact of the sense of like the powerlessness that Emilio was talking about. It's like us as students, if we're not even able to mention names or mention situations that we go through honestly in a what is this, a pop-up BIPOC or whatever it's called, then how are we supposed to tackle it at school? You know what I'm saying? So it's just again, it feels discouraging because I am the president of the Black Student Union, and it's a responsibility that I chose, but I have to look out for every Black student that comes through CASA. You know what I mean? And I have neighbors right over there that they come to our meetings, and they're young and they're biracial, but it's just like I see them and I'm like, I'm a senior and they're just coming in, and I just think like, man, I feel sorry for you, because if you're not even allowed to express how you truly feel about these types of things, then what is your 4 years going to be like? And I'm going to be honest, it's been a lot of suffering for me.
So, I'm visually very white, and so I've been lucky enough to not face any, outright racism. My sister has more Asian features than I do, and I just remember when she was in junior high, she's a freshman now, so this was really recently. She would come home like once a week, twice a week, talking about how students would go up to her and pull their eyes back, like mocking the way that they look. They would they said that she looked like an alien. And so I just remember hearing that and I was like, wow, like that is really, I don't know. I just didn't think that like Petaluma could, or like, I guess, yeah, like Petaluma and especially this school would kind of bring those types of students.
Yeah, like Megan, I am half white and I'm half Filipino. I've never really faced something as awful as direct racism like a lot of students do at Petaluma schools in particular. But I remember there was a lot of times in the airport, like the TSA would stop my family and I from going through the security because we didn't look like our dad because he was white and my mom was brown, and our whole family was brown except for my dad. And so they would automatically sort of assume that we weren't together. And that just made me think about how a lot of times people categorize races into different categories and try to make people feel like they have to fit into one specific group. And I wish that things would change so that people would feel like it's okay to be mixed, it's okay to be colored, it's okay to be interracial couples or families. And so now that I am thinking about all those times when people would separate others for being different races, it's really made me think a lot about my own identity.
I wanted to come on here and say that the Petaluma City School staff have been nothing but kind to me for the past years that I've been within this school system. However, there was a time, and many times, however, I'm not going to say I'm not going to say which ones, but there was one time that has stuck with me for a couple of years now, and it was a specific class in which the teacher made me feel unimportant. And me and my classmates had a project to do. That's where it started. Since I was not able to complete it during class, there was too much to do. The teacher offered for me to go at lunch. I was the first one to get there, and once I arrived and asked for help, the teacher said, "I'm dealing with important students. Wait for your turn." It's difficult for me to talk about this just because at that time and place I was so in shock that a teacher could say, "I'm dealing with important students." I had been the first one to get there, yet I'm not important. Shortly after, she states, "It's your kind that does this every single time." I felt my chest tighten and my vision blur. Was she serious? Did she really just say that what I thought I heard? I felt tears forming into my eyes, and to this day, I know that what I have done is important. That I, as a student, am important. And as a Latina and first-generation student in my family, I know that what I have done and who I am is important. But with those words, I doubt myself constantly on, am I doing enough? Will I be enough? And what do I have to do in order to be enough for those around me? So yes, that is a time that I felt singled out, and it is something that has affected me throughout the years. But I actually used this and made it so that it motivated me to prove that coming from where I come from and my difficult situations, because we all have difficult situations that we deal through, I believe that we don't always have to be let down by these words that other people say, yet we could use that as motivation to do better, not just for ourselves, but for the future generations that we hope to do change for.
What can educators do to make schools more welcoming and culturally inclusive?
Same order, or should Macon start? Okay, same order. I didn't put down an answer to this. I've been thinking about all these questions for a couple days, and I personally think that the school is trying their hardest to make them more welcoming, culturally inclusive. But a lot of it is integrated into the curriculum, like history class. History class is a really big thing that I don't really think that can change so easily because it's a state thing. But the way that history class is constructed is very European American centric, and it really, like, the way that it makes me feel as a Mexican person, as a native Mexican person also, and as a native person in general, whatever, it makes me feel like I don't matter. Like the history curriculum in general. Feel like I'm getting a little bit fired up, but I think I'm gonna put it there and pass it off to Indy.
Yeah, I totally agree with Emilio. I mean, of course, it doesn't apply to the demographics of Sonoma County, considering that it's majority Caucasian. But I mean, I feel like as a nation, we need to change the curriculum to match its demographics, because we're such a melting pot. It should, be more, I guess, an international curriculum. So, I mean, with that being said, I don't know. I personally don't know how it would apply to Petaluma City's schools, especially because you're teaching to a majority white students. But I mean, I know Petaluma, even from when I was a freshman. When I was a freshman, I think it was like, I don't know, maybe 18 of us, 18 Black students. But now there's quite a few African incoming Black students. So I mean, when it comes to curriculum wise, I mean, I feel like our curriculum isn't too focused on, like, it's not that it's too focused on whiteness that's the problem, in my opinion. It's dishonest. It's just completely dishonest. Like, we paint figures in history to be positive or negative when it's like it's the opposite. You know what I mean? Like, we all know Columbus was a terrible human being and that he genocided major groups of people, just like Cortez or other historical figures, but we still hold them to high esteem and we still teach it like it's something positive or to a person to look up to, even though he was horrible. Just like we would never look at the Holocaust and be like, oh, that's positive because it was done by the Germans. We shouldn't look at Columbus as a hero just because he did it to the people that, you know, that our country stole the land of. So I guess one thing that we could change, instead of just trying to change the whole curriculum, I guess we should just change on how we teach it. So when we go over the Columbus unit and world history, world history, we come at it from a perspective of like solitude, knowing that there were thousands of natives that were murdered. Or like when we go over slavery, instead of just showing, you know, like, oh, just showing a film of a bunch, like, I hate this every time in class. They just show a film of a bunch of slaves. Instead of showing that, like, cover it like we cover the Holocaust. You know, we have so much dignity about it. We have so much respect of the people that atrocities were committed to. So I guess that's the only thing that I would personally would want to change, because the other stuff would be kind of illogical in my opinion.
I agree with both Emilio and Indy. I think it has a lot to do with the curriculum, and I know that California just made it so that high school students have to take a semester of ethnic studies now to graduate, which I think is great. But I think that this is something that needs to be taken really seriously by teachers and needs to be taught in depth and cover like everything. But that'll be hard if it's only a semester. And also, like, it's going to take a long time. I mean, educators have been really supportive of diversify our narrative and like trying to get more, like, less white literature in English classes. But again, it's just a really like time consuming process. And there are a lot of people in this town that are not supportive of it, which is it's difficult to kind of like fight for that change when there's so many people who are against it.
I totally agree with everyone on supporting the ethnic studies curriculum in schools. And I think that would be so amazing for everyone to be a part of and to learn from different people's backgrounds and experiences. And I know that's more of like a long-term goal. So it would be difficult to enforce that or get that as a part of the curriculum for Petaluma City schools. Yeah, I think also for Asian American students, just letting kids know that it's okay for them to speak up. And generally, I'm a pretty quiet person. I think that's part of my nature, but also being told, like, by my parents and my mom's parents telling her to keep her head down, focus on your schoolwork, don't let other kids distract you from your schoolwork. And while focusing on school is important, I think also letting Asian American students have a voice. And the best way to do that, to make the Asian American student community feel seen and represented, I think you could also ask these types of questions through like a Google form, or make it so that other students can participate. Yeah.
I also agree with my peers on what they said about ethnic studies. I feel like that would be a really big step, that by taking that step, we would be able to include much more students. And I also agree with Gabriela on how if we did do Google Forms, or if we were able, there was a way that we could get, we could ask questions to the students of what they want to see. I feel like that's one of the best ways that we could be more inclusive within our community of PCS. And as well as, I believe that the school staff so far has done a very good job being inclusive and welcoming. However, there are, like I said before, there does have to be some changes. And but also staff needs to take and acknowledge that many students are struggling with the worry of hoping they will succeed in school, that sometimes it's very difficult for them to be open with what they want to see. And I believe if that we do start implementing this idea of you do have a voice, by starting this forum, I think that was very important that we got a voice to say what we wanted to tell you guys. I believe that's something very, very important, and that will surely get and motivate much more students to speak up on what they want to see.
I just want to step in for a little bit. I would like to introduce Edwin. He's on the phone. He's also one of the panelists. Edwin, would you please introduce yourself, say what grade level, what high school, and also how do you identify yourself from either race or ethnicity?
Hi, I'm Edwin. I'm 17. I go to San Antonio High School, the continuation school, and I identify as Latinx, and that's pretty much it.
Thank you. And then Edwin, the question that everyone was answering was our question number 3. Is that correct, everyone? So I'm going to read it out. And if you could also take the time to respond, that would be nice. It's what can educators do to make schools more welcoming and culturally inclusive?
Wait, sorry, can you repeat that real quick? It just lagged up.
What can educators do to make schools more welcoming and culturally inclusive?
Well, when I was hearing some of the ideas, I definitely agreed with most of them because, I'm sorry, but the last student who said that they should, or that they did good work with the staff, that they're letting kids know that their voices can be heard. And I think that should probably be the main issue that should be worked on, letting them know that it's a safe place and a safe environment and that everyone can be inclusive and everyone can just be a part of this amazing community.
Thank you. We are going to continue with our 4th question, and it'll be Gabby.
The 4th question is, how can PCS administrators help in improving your school learning experience?
Okay, so I also didn't have an answer to this one.
Give it a second. Emilio, you're frozen. So why don't we go with Indy in the meantime? We get Emilio back.
Or no adult around doing it. What?
Do you mind repeating? You cut off your video froze.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I will repeat the whole question. Yeah, so hearing all of my fellow PCS students speak really got me thinking more about my experiences. So it's made me remember how it feels like whenever I've been targeted, there's no one around, or no adult around to catch what's going on or do anything. Or even when it happens in classrooms, it seems like teachers, I want to believe that they don't see it, because it just feels like when something goes on inside the classrooms, somehow they don't hear that. And it sounds bright as day to me, but yeah, I feel like teachers and administrators and whatever really need to say something when they hear something. And I know that's hard. For me personally, there's so many times when I haven't said anything. But yeah, I think that's the biggest way administrators can help improve our experience.
Um, what could PCS do to make, I guess, school more a better place for people of color? The way I would answer this question is probably through, like, again, through what we were talking about before, the integration of, I guess, ethnic studies into the curriculum. And one thing that I could say that kind of bothers me is that why is it called ethnic studies? Why can't it just be like, why is Black history Black history? Why couldn't it just be integrated into the curriculum as regular history? Like, it makes it more racist. It makes you guys look more racist by calling it ethnic studies than just calling it history. Just put it into the curriculum. I don't see why you guys need to differentiate. And other than integrating learning into integrating diverse history into curriculums, I mean, a lot of it's going to take time. And again, it's difficult. You guys are in a difficult position because Petaluma is such, especially Petaluma, but Sonoma County is such a not a diverse place to be in. So it's an uphill battle for you guys, but it's just you guys have to get it. You guys are part of the problem in a sense, because you guys are part of the system and the bureaucracy that holds up the institutions that we go to. But it's like, again, just quit calling it ethnic studies. Just put, like, people should already know who the the Tuskegee brothers are and stuff like that, and people should know who George Washington Carver. Like, I grew up reading about him, but I was homeschooled. But like, so this stuff is like history. It's regular to me, but to a lot of students, they don't even know it. And it's America. To me, it's American history. It's not Black history. But again, just don't marginalize people, I guess.
Can I just say something real quick before you go, Megan? Yeah, so I was actually thinking the same thing when we were talking about that last time, that the idea of ethnic studies is kind of rigged, because when you say ethnic studies, you're implying that white history is the
correct history, right? Yeah.
brown people or Black people or whatever, and yeah, it just kind of singles out ethnic people, to Megan now.
Sorry, Megan, can I cut you off really quickly before you start? I agree with you too. However, I believe that using ethnic studies as the term, I won't use it, if you guys aren't comfortable with that. However, because in the past, it seems from what we were saying that we weren't validated as such as the correct history, I believe that's a big step of demonstrating that we do want to be heard, right? And we do want our history to be normalized as this is the correct history for all of us. However, I believe that starting with baby steps would be the best thing, because like you guys said, a lot of people don't want this. Most of Petaluma doesn't believe in this. And so from our perspective of students saying this, either we're going to be listened to or we're going to be ignored. I feel like that's something we really have to consider when talking about something like this, because the baby steps we have to take for it to be normalized as regular and normal history is for us to start with something that singles us out to prove that we want to be in that history. We want to be validated as such because we have the right to. So I think you guys have really valid points, but we do have to consider that as students, us saying this, we have to start with something from what we want, so we can actually achieve our goal at some point. I really like what you guys said. However, we do have to consider that for students, as students saying this, since it is our first forum,
I strongly disagree, because this is the thing. It's like we have to either we have to demand it. Like, we can't just be like, include us but single us out, because you have to look at it from, I'm African, so my perspective is different than like other Black people's perspective, you see, because when a Black person, like, sees like it's hard to explain this, but from the Black perspective, I strongly disagree with you because we already are singled out in society. So we don't need more of that. We need to, it's almost like we just have to be represented fairly. We like, it's not fair that we have to be called that our history has to be considered ethnic. That's not fair, considering that Black people were some of the first immigrants with the Europeans. Of course, it was by force. I'm not saying that it was right or that it should have been that way, but it is a part of American history. So it's like, to call it ethnic history, it's literally insulting Black people because you're saying that it's not part of American history. And I understand that the Hispanic community and the Latinx community came in later during American history. You know what I mean? But for specific, I'm speaking. It's in my opinion, it's an insult.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't hear the first part of I didn't hear if you stated that it was like you were speaking on behalf of the Black community for that perspective. I thought you meant as like Black, Latino, and Hispanic. That's why I said that. But I do understand yeah, sorry. No, yeah, I thought you were saying as like all together. No, yes, of course. No, yeah, of course. Sorry, I thought you were talking as like as a whole. I was like, hold on a second. But no, yeah, I think you're completely correct on that, and more for the Black community. I believe you guys do need that representation. However, now on my behalf of talking like Latino and Hispanics, I think it really is important that me and the Asian Americans as well. I believe it's just super important that we do get represented as well. And for history, that we're also validated as history. So thank you for clarifying.
Thank you, Megan, for waiting patiently. We're here to listen to you.
I'm gonna kind of touch on a different point, and I think Emilio kind of mentioned in the beginning, but I also noticed there are not a lot of repercussions for like racism specifically. I hear like slurs all the time in the halls, and just there are staff there, and it feels like they're just not doing anything, which is it's just like weird. I just think that there needs to be more consequences for this, because this is like it's just I've never seen so much kind of like leniency for something that is like not okay to do at all. And so I think that is something that administrators need to work on.
Yes, that's kind of what I was waiting to talk about too with Emilio and Megan's point, was that a lot of times I'll hear like Asian slurs or people making fun of the way like Asians talk. I remember there was this one time in English not too long ago where our teacher played like the Japanese samurai version of Macbeth, because that was what we were reading at the time. And during the movie and after the movie, like kids were like, oh my gosh, what was that? Or what were they saying? It didn't even make sense. Or like that was so weird. Like the actors are weird. And I just think if you see something wrong that's happening, or you hear something that isn't right, then you should stand up, and that you should tell the students that it's wrong. Because when people don't realize what they're saying is wrong, other kids and students think it's okay to do the same thing. And that builds on itself into a bigger problem of racism and singling out Asians in particular, but also other races. And yeah, that's my point for that.
So I already said my point. So, but I do think that also just administrators could, it'd be really helpful that they did acknowledge that this is an ongoing problem, not only for us, but for many other school districts as well. And that this should be something that has to be talked about and dealt with soon, because if not, it's going to turn into a bigger problem in which we won't know what to do. And students won't be able to feel like they do have a voice within the community of PCS. So, yes.
Edwin?
Everyone, would you like to respond to that final question? Would you like me to read it out loud again to you?
Hello.
Hello, there you are. Yay. Edwin, how can TCS administrators help in improving your school learning experience?
Definitely eliminating distractions, such as the points that they brought up, as my peers brought up, like the racism, and like also like there's a lot of well, this is when before I attended San Antonio, I went to Casa Grande, but I also saw a lot of like homophobia, and everything was just so toxic. And I think PCS should also point it out with the staff instead of just sitting around and punishing those students. So I would just like to agree with all the points that my peers said. Sorry if I didn't make that clear.
Thank you. And then last, is there any other comments? I wanted to open it up for any final thoughts or possible next steps you might see happening.
Well, I guess what I was going to say could fit in both of those. But I remember back in middle school, administration would profile students that were not white and discipline them harder. And statistically, that happens. But yeah, I just wanted to make a comment that probably the reason why nothing is done is because to some point, some of the staff is part of the problem, or would do that if they were a student, but because they know better, they're not saying anything. I don't know if I made my point clear, but yeah.
Thank you, Emilio. Anyone else? Final thoughts?
I have something. It's kind of, I know that maybe it's because I'm in the cluster that I'm in, but one of the things that I noticed that was like really positive was in my freshman English class, was what was it? We read To Kill a Mockingbird, and that actually brought a lot of like insight to our classmates about racial inequality. And I just want to speak to it because it feels like maybe again, and maybe it's because of the quote cluster that I'm in, which is like a cohort, that I'm in healthcare pathway, not American Voices or International House. So maybe that's the reason. But it almost like I feel like every cluster should have a book like that's focused on like humanities, because like I feel like the only time in school that I truly felt like where people actually learned empathy was through literature. You know what I mean? And through To Kill a Mockingbird, that was the first time I've ever seen a white kid empathize with someone that was black. Like really feel empathy. So it's just like honestly, like I don't know if you guys could do it, but like add more in like literature that like moves people into the curriculum, because again, I in my opinion, that's the only way that like people can really learn empathy, is because when you read it, you're almost living that experience, and you can be like, wow, you know what I mean? Like people really had to go through this, or what if I was in that situation?
Thank you, Emily. Any last comments, thoughts, suggestions for us? Well, I just want to say thank you so much for taking this time out of your evening. I truly appreciate you being here and volunteering. And I just loved hearing all of you, what you have to say, hearing your voice. Thank you very much. I do also want to introduce Maite, our assistant superintendent. She is also here joining us tonight. And I will allow Maite and Matthew give the final closing remarks. And once again, thank you everyone for joining us from the comfort of your home. And I am just so grateful all of you are here attending tonight's BIPOC, our first forum, student forum. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I am so impressed by the students of Petaluma City Schools. Very impressed. You're courageous and brave and bold. And I'm so honored to be sharing this space with you tonight. So thank you all very much for taking the time and sharing your stories. It's important for us to hear. So thank you.
I just want to add, I too feel honored just to share this space with this group of students and acknowledge the bravery just that it took to come in on a panel and on Zoom and speak to a group of, we got 33 or 43 adults here in the 40 adults. Clearly a brilliant group of students. I know I learned some things tonight too, and I appreciate the conversation and the civil discourse. This conversation is being recorded and archived. And it was enlightening to hear the perspectives, and frankly, heartbreaking to hear some of the experiences that were lived. I appreciate your time. Clearly, we have a lot of work in front of us as a district, and the comments here are one step in the right direction. Indy, I think that closing comment that you gave about literature and building empathy was very insightful and helpful to hear too. So thank you all for your time tonight.
Jimena, did you see Emilio's request?
Yes, I'll be responding. Everyone can look at the chat, and if whoever's willing to stay to debrief from the panel, you are welcome to stay. I also would like to say we'll be sending out a link for any viewers to give us your feedback on tonight's forum. And once again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Have a great evening.
There's a link in the chat for some feedback if you're able to click that and give us some responses on how tonight went. That would be wonderful.